I like to say that Megan's the director and I'm the cinematographer.
Yes,
Um,
yes, I think that's right.
yeah.
Well,
So,
it's kind of when we're editing too, um,
right.
it's sort of like that as well.
Yeah, it's a real team effort though.
Yeah, it is. It's really, really fun.
Hi, Megan. How are you doing today?
I'm good, Victoria. How are you?
I'm good. Where are you joining us from?
I'm joining you from Northern Virginia, not too far from Washington, D.C.
So tell us about your music journey and how did the harp came into your life?
I went on a family trip to Ireland when I was just 4 years old. My mom took my sister and me over to support my aunt who was in an Irish heritage competition. And we went over and got to see her compete. And I also had the opportunity to see a harpist for the first time. And it really made a huge impression on me. And we got home, and my parents said, well, let's start her on piano, which was great. I always loved that. I did that for many, many years, but something about the harp just had resonated with me, you could say. And I just wouldn't let it go. My mom was, she was an amazing person in my life, and she contacted a local music camp to see if they were going to be having a harp instructor for their summer program. And in fact, they were not, but she was very persistent, as all good moms are, and she kind of pushed the director into finding one. And so she found Gulia Masharova, who was studying at Juilliard at the time for her master's. And she came to the camp to teach, and the two of us really hit it off. I remember being so sad when the camp was over, feeling like, now what? And my parents sat me down and they said, we would be willing to take you to New York City every other week from Pennsylvania for lessons if you promise you'll practice and make it a priority. And I was thrilled, and that's what we did for about 8 years. Every other week, we all, as a family, headed into New York, and I had the lessons, and it was just an incredible time, really amazing opportunity.
That's amazing. And I can imagine doing that for 8 years. That must take a lot of
Yes.
commitment from you to make
Yes.
that
And a
happen.
lot of belief by my parents. Like looking back on it now as a mom of three young children, like I don't think I fully appreciated the sacrifice that it was until I became a parent and could kind of look at it through their eyes, to see how much they supported me and believed in me.
So you played the pedal and or some people would call it the classical harp, and you also sing with it quite often. So what makes you interested in getting into this harp and song combo?
Yeah, so it was not something that I kind of grew up doing at all. I grew up loving to sing and loving to play the harp, both, but never really thinking about putting both of them together. I got my undergraduate degrees from Peabody Conservatory in harp performance and voice performance, and it wasn't until I was a senior and my harp teacher, Dr. Ruth Inglefield, encouraged me to try to put the two together. And so for my senior recital, I performed a very jazzy version of Silent Night, and I sang and played together. And when she first suggested it, I thought, oh my gosh, I don't even know if it's possible to play. I mean, doing fairly simple things on the harp and singing seemed like it would be reasonable, but doing more complex um, arrangements while singing at the time seemed darned near impossible. So I kind of was in the practice room and just working on, just the harp part alone, and then, just the voice part alone, and then like timidly sort of trying to put the two together. And then, just with anything else after a lot of practice and doing it over and over again, I gained a little bit more comfort with it. And, that's kind of how I began putting the two things together as I started that journey. But now it feels as natural as breathing. And I don't really need to separate the two anymore. Like they're both a part of me simultaneously now.
That's great. And I have talked to quite a lot of people who do playing instrument and singing at the same time a lot because there's a lot of us learners who want to get into it and found it really
Yes.
challenging. It's like, rubbing your tummy and patting your head at
Yes.
the same time,
In so many ways,
right?
in so many ways. And there's something asymmetrical too about playing the harp,
Mm.
in a way that like piano, for instance, it's not quite the same. I'm not saying that people who play the piano while singing, that's easy in any way or shape or form. Not at all, but it's just um, a little bit more straightforward than the harp, because the harp is such an all-body experience. You've got, when you're playing the concert harp, you've got pedals to be worrying about, and the range is big, and so it's not exactly straightforward, but once you do it, it can become very natural and organic, and a wonderful experience for the performer and hopefully the listeners as well.
Right. Do you have any tips in terms of how we can practice that coordination between playing such an imposing
Yes.
instrument while singing?
So I think the way that I initially did it was useful, kind of trying to separate it initially. Really working on getting really solid in your harp playing, as a good foundation for doing both together is helpful, especially early on in the process. And especially if you're even now, if I'm doing something that's very complex with the harp, which I like to do actually because it makes the arrangements way more interesting than just playing something very simple. So sometimes I'll still even do that in the complicated sections. Just make sure that hard part's really solid and then add in the voice on top of it. And the other thing that you can do as well, of course, is make sure that your arrangements when you first starting out are simpler. Just simpler arpeggios, chords, not a lot of, if you're a pedal harpist, not a lot of pedal changes. To kind of mix into it at first, and then as you develop that skill of doing both together, you can make the arrangements more complicated.
So when I interview guests, I like to peruse their website and kind of learn about what they have done in their career so far. And you have played for some pretty notable audience, according to your website, including Taylor Swift and two Speaker of the House of U.S. House of Representatives. So what was
Yeah.
your experience like to perform for these sort of high profile, I would call them, audience, which is quite different
Yes.
than say like playing at a wedding where, the atmosphere is perhaps a little bit more relaxed. What was that like?
At first, it was very nerve-wracking and almost like an out-of-body experience. Like you can't believe that you're seeing what you're seeing, especially given that the first high-profile person I played for really was Taylor Swift. And this was back in 2016. And it was very hard to focus actually on the music and to stay, just engaged in what I'm supposed to be doing. I think that's what I've gotten better at over the years. At first, it's almost a shock to the system when you're in those situations. But then as you do it more and more, you learn that we're all just people, even people who are notable, people who are really famous the world over. We're all just people, and we're just sharing our music and the love of what we do with other people, whether that be, somebody from down the street or whether that be, a Speaker of the House. It's all a joy to be able to share what I do with others.
Yeah, one of the guests I've talked to said that people just want to come and have a good time when they go to a concert.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, that's great. And you start writing original music a couple of years ago. And what kind of
Yes.
inspiration do you draw from in writing your music? And has songwriting been a part of your life, sort of music life, for a while? Or is it something that you just thought, you know what, I'm going to get into it because you got that
Yeah.
itch to write?
That's a great question. So I've always been a little bit of a theory nerd, so I guess the building blocks of it were always kind of there for me. But when I started playing with Alex, my husband, I knew that I would have to start arranging because there's so little music written for harp, cello, and voice that the only way we were going to be able to really do much of anything was if I started arranging for those instruments. And that's become a real love of mine too. And it does take some of those ear training and theory skills and puts them to good use so that I can dictate kind of what's going on in the piece that I'm trying to arrange for these instruments. So that's always been a love of mine. I've really grown to enjoy that tremendously. Um, and then from that, COVID kind of happened and we were just home and we became more creative in general. So we started doing music videos and recordings and all of that, focusing on the music that was really important to us as musicians and not really thinking about, oh, what's important for a bride for her wedding, but like coming back in, like we were really out of work from that point on in terms of the music career, as so many musicians around the world were at that point. And it really kind of gave me the ability to sort of look inward a little bit more and what kind of legacy did I want to leave for our children? Thinking about how short life is. I think COVID really did that for all of us. And wanting to make sure that when I'm away from them working, that it's the best thing to be doing with that time is to be making the music that's meaningful to us and to record it so that they can hear it, when we're gone. And it just kind of came out of that creative place. I just sat down one day and wrote the song I'll Lift You Up, which is about our children actually, and it's on our YouTube channel. And there's a music video with it. And it just kind of like sparked something in me. And from then on, I've been writing a lot of music that has various influences, but it's definitely more in the pop music sphere. When we were in New York a lot, when I was taking my lessons as a youngster, I got to go see a lot of Broadway musicals. And I was so lucky to do that. We would stand on the TKTS lines and get 50% off tickets. And so I think I have a lot of influence from that as well. I've even been doing a little bit of musical theater writing. I'm working on a novel right now, actually, that I'm hoping to kind of turn into a musical theater piece. So it's just taken me in a lot of directions that I really never expected to go. I never thought I'd be a writer, but it's been really, really rewarding and fun and a great challenge.
I'll lift you up so you can touch the sky. I'll give you wings so you can learn to fly. All I need is you, and all you need is me. And for just one moment, life's perfect as can be.
Yeah, I think with all the unpleasantness that comes from the pandemic, something that I do notice is it gave us an opportunity, like you said, to look inward and ask ourselves what matters to us. 'Cause I personally started learning the harp during the pandemic. Well, I had a whole bunch of time in my
Wow.
hands all of a sudden. But I also asked myself, like, what do I want for myself? So kind of much like
Yeah.
we said, like, what do we want to do with ourselves now that we're kind of removed from the rest of the world, if you will. So I'm glad that you took
Yes.
the leap and start writing music because now it kind of become a staples of yours now because you're continuing to write music, isn't it?
That's right. Yes, we've put out a couple albums so far, and that's been a really rewarding experience as well. And now we're really excited to be starting work on like an all originals album. So we're kind of like in the middle of that process now, and hopefully we're going to be accelerating work on that. It's hard with three little ones, but it's really important to us to be able to, in a different way than when you're working on covers or Celtic music when you're recording the music that's original, it's more important in some ways. It's leaving a different kind of stamp on the musical world and the legacy for our kids. It's really the music that we've created and we've come up with and kind of saying what we want to say with it.
I do want to ask you about being a musician while having young children. It happens quite often. I think more often than people imagine. They probably didn't realize
Yes.
how busy some of the musicians are behind the scene. How do you find that experience, and how does that contrast with where before you have children? Do you
Yeah.
enjoy spending time with your kids around your instrument too? Does that become part of their life? Have you seen that?
Yeah. I hope so. I hope they're being, positively influenced by it. Do you know that saying that if you want to get something done, you give it to a busy person? It's kind of like that, sort of. I feel like and at some points, during the summer, it's a lot going on because everybody's home and it's harder for me to get any work done at all. But it's wonderful. Um, but in general, I think I get more done. I'm more productive now than I was before I had kids, and I think it's because those moments that you have that you're able to sit down and work on something, you really take advantage of them. I remember saying before kids, "Oh, I'm so busy," and now that just is like, "Oh, but I took naps then, and maybe instead of naps, I should have been writing music or working on a video or whatever the case may be." And yeah, I think that it kind of it gives you a motivation in what you're doing. It gives you more purpose because you have kids and because you want to leave them a legacy and show them the importance of music in our world in a way that maybe I wouldn't have had quite that same direction and purpose without them.
I think it's fair to say a lot of mothers are maximizers. We will stretch every minute we have and make the most out
That's
of
so
it.
true.
That's
Yes.
wonderful. Now, I do want to talk to you about the Megan and Alex duo. You have already alluded to
Yes.
playing with your husband and the cello. So, if we could invite Alex to join us, that would be wonderful.
Sure.
So welcome, Alex, for taking the time and join us. Tell us about the Megan and Alex duo and what is the vision for the two of you playing together, and what can the audience expect when they go to a concert that has both of you in there?
We're both classically trained. We come from that tradition, and we love playing classical music, but we're excited to kind of engage new audiences. We think that these instruments are incredibly versatile, and so we're trying to bring more popular genres, popular influence, modern influence, to new audiences. We're doing that through covers of well-known artists, as well as we have a whole album full of Scottish-inspired, Outlander-inspired music called the Skyboat Song, and then we're also doing a lot of original music as well.
So there's quite a mix of things that we can expect from the two of you
Yes,
creatively. That's awesome.
yes.
Alex, tell us a little bit about your music journey. And do you play with other instrument other than the harp? And how have you found playing with the harp?
Yeah, so I started playing the cello in third grade when I was about 8 years old. I played in school orchestras and string quartets, youth orchestras. I played through high school, through college. Um, when I went to engineering school, I had a small orchestra scholarship that helped out a lot. But I played mostly with more common orchestral instruments, string quartets, string trios, piano trios, and then I met Megan.
Yeah, when we met, I just thought, it's such an amazing thing to be able to play with someone else, to be able to perform together. And basically, whatever he told me he played, it was going to be okay, we're going to play it together. So I was really thrilled to learn that it was cello, which has always been one of my absolute favorite instruments. And I'd never really played with a cellist before. I'd played with flutists, I played with violinists, a lot of singers, but not really with the cello. So it was really fun to be able to put those two sounds together, which I think is just gorgeous. And also to learn how to arrange for it, which I admit I'm not the best, but I do my best. I'm trying to learn about like bowings and things that are just not in my wheelhouse at all. As a harpist, we don't have anything like that. A lot of people will lump us in with stringed instruments, which it's true, we are a stringed instrument, but the technique is so very different, not being a bowed instrument. So getting to learn a little bit about that and arrange for these two instruments was really a neat part of the journey of us performing together.
Yeah, she'll write her pedal markings and I'll write my bow markings.
Usually that's how it goes.
I love it. I am going to ask you about the arranging part of it because your music obviously have to suit both instrument and also sometimes add in with your vocal. And like you said, there's not a lot of arrangements available for harp, cello, and voice out there. And that probably means you're
Yes.
gonna end up making a lot of those arrangements together. And how have you find that process? Is it a lot of work? Are you getting more comfortable with kind of how to navigate the two instrument working together?
Yeah, it's really interesting because every arrangement is kind of different. It's its own thing. So even though I've done a ton of them, each song brings its new challenges, which is kind of a neat part about it. It's not a cookie cutter like endeavor. So, somebody says, we want this song for our wedding. So then you listen to it and you're like, okay, so how do we perform it so that somebody listening to it will recognize it, will understand what we're going for right away, but in a way that really suits the instruments. Maybe it's going to be slightly different than obviously, something that might be played on guitar and piano and whatever the original instruments might be, but really kind of finding that balance between, being almost exactly like the original, but in a way that suits the instruments, using different techniques that the harp is known for, the cello is known for, to kind of make it its own piece of music as well, like stand on its own two legs, sort of, in a way, so that it's an interesting musical experience for the listener.
Mhm. And do you partake a lot in that arrangement process too, Alex? Imagine that, like you said, you will put your bow marking and she put her pedal marking, so it could be a pretty collaborative experience.
Megan does most of the work. She'll come to me for a consultation. Can you play this? Is this too high? Is this too low? What clef would you like it in?
Yeah.
Cellos, when we play in mostly bass clef, we play mostly bass clef, but when we play in a higher register, we sometimes use tenor or treble clef also. So we don't like to read ledger lines.
It really depends on what we're doing too,
Right.
because if it's a voice cello harp thing, usually Alex is in the bass clef because I have sort of a lower voice. I'm a mezzo soprano, so I'm not singing in the stratosphere. So when he's accompanying me, we do a lot of things in duet, which is really fun. So we have to make sure we're not voice crossing. So therefore, he undoubtedly, when I'm singing, does a lot in the lower registers. So it's interesting because the cello is awesome. It has such a beautiful big range. So sometimes we like to take advantage of that if we're in duet, and then we take a break from the vocal part, and then we have a cello lead, and he gets to kind of jump up to the higher registers and really show what the instrument can do. So it's like an artist palette when you're sitting down to do an arrangement. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah. And it sounds like a process that you really kind of have to think through carefully when you're blending the harp, the voice, and the cello together. And of course, your
Yes.
collaboration doesn't just stop at the arrangement, because I've also noticed you make a lot of really beautiful videos that you can see in your YouTube channel, which there's going to be a link in the video description. Tell us a little bit about that. Like, how do you get into making music video, and how have you found that experience working together, creating these videos?
Been awesome. I absolutely love it. Not to say it's not a ton of work and always takes so many more hours than you kind of plan for. But it's really neat working together and coming up with a concept. Sometimes we'll do like storyboards. We want it to be telling this story. So we're going to want to show this shot here, that shot there, and kind of planning it out. We've gotten so much better at that than when we first started. When we did the Skyboat song video, which you'll see on our YouTube channel, we that was a lot of fun, but we took so much video coverage, way more than we probably needed because we were novices at it and we're like, we don't know what we're going to need. So we ended up doing a ton more work than we probably had to. But it was a really great learning experience for us, and kind of, when we sat down and started piecing it all together, that was a really new experience for us, but really, really rewarding too.
Yeah, I think Megan was saying earlier during the COVID lockdown, we weren't really able to perform live anymore for a while there. So we started with performance videos and just doing one shot of Meghan performing, and then we started to mix in a shot of her performing and me performing and mixing the audio together. And I think
Used our phone initially for some of them,
the
so
first one, I think it was Into the
into
Mystic.
Mystic, yeah. Okay.
That was shot on Megan's phone. And then we got some more sophisticated gear and learned more about lighting. And we started doing the audio recording separately, and then working in performance video as well as narrative elements. And pulling that all together is a lot of fun. We have to take we start with the song and what it needs, what kind of story we want to tell.
Right.
I think we work together pretty well with that. When we're filming, I like to say that Megan's the director and I'm the cinematographer.
Yes. Yes, I think that's right.
Yeah.
Well,
So
it's kind of when we're editing too.
right.
It's sort of like that as well.
Yeah, it's a real team effort though.
Yeah, it is. It's really, really fun.
Our vessel surrenders to waves swift and strong. Our fates predetermined by siren's sweet song. The future is unknown, but with you I won't be alone. Come away, come away. I'm a wayfarer. My destiny is on the sea with you.
It just takes about 5 times longer than
When
You
it's a
expected.
2-person team, we were actually on the Netflix show Love is Blind. About a year and a half ago, we were the wedding musicians for the wedding scenes, and that was a really incredible experience for us because we got to see what an enormous set with a huge crew and all this equipment looks like, and see how relatively calm everything was. Everybody had their job, everybody had their clipboards, everybody knew what they were doing and when they were going to be doing it. And it was very planned out. And for us, when we're recording, it's sometimes chaotic, but
we plan,
we
but
plan.
then there's only 2 of us, so we do all the pre-production and the set dressing and the lighting and the audio and the camera work, and sometimes I'm holding a Steadicam and wearing a backpack with a small speaker in it, playing the song and walking backwards down a trail while Megan is lip syncing to it. It's
Sometimes we're flying a drone through an arch.
yeah, it's been a lot of fun though.
Yeah.
I think that is something that I enjoy about working with other people. And I think what's really interesting for me, particularly in your case, is you're working as a husband and wife team. So during lockdown, ended up working with my husband in the same office, we call it, because we were both in the basement. And I was wondering how that's going to go, because I thought I wouldn't want to work with him in the same space and have to spend time with him in the evening afterwards, because that just seems like too much Victoria and husband time. But to your point, I think when you have a good partner and you enjoy sort of working together, I think you find a way to make things work, even if it is not perfect. And I would love to kind of hear how have your relationship being a husband and wife have helped, or maybe not, in your creative process as a musician. How do you find that different working relationship than being a husband and wife team with, your 3 children?
It's awesome because I think sometimes you tiptoe around other people who are not your spouse. You're not wanting to step on toes, and I might be a little bit let's say assertive sometimes with some of the visions that the ideas that I come up with, and trying to make it happen. But I feel comfortable with Alex being able to really tell him exactly what I'm thinking and what my vision is and what the project needs, and not really as worried about, stepping on toes, because, that's what they have to love you at the end of the day, right? They have to be there and forgive you if you make them a little bit grumpy sometimes. But, that's part of it too. And I think it actually makes it more effective when you can, tell the complete truth all the time, not be scared to be real. And I think that serves the project well too. I don't know if you wanted to add.
Yeah, it definitely helps. I find during performances, it's so easy to communicate this connection that we have with our music and personally, and bring that into the music and to the audience. And it's so much fun to play with Meghan. Um, I always like playing in small ensembles better than really big groups, just for the intimacy of the one voice per instrument. Playing with Meghan is just such a treat.
Oh, that's sweet.
Yeah.
It is awesome. I feel like sometimes we have almost a telepathic ability to just anticipate what the other person is feeling in the moment, and if something's going awry, that you can kind of communicate that on a nonverbal level with a husband or wife I don't know if you can quite get there with another musician, unless it's somebody you're playing with, constantly, and you've been playing with for many years. I think that kind of a connection takes many, many years to kind of to develop.
I agree. And I think there's some subtlety in the music that comes with that unspoken nonverbal connection that I think the audience can feel. Because I have
Yes.
probably seen some like duos and trios that I knew they have worked together for a long time, and you can see they're just talking
Yes.
with each other with their eyebrows. They don't have to
Yes.
tell each other what's going on. And as the audience, it's actually a really interesting thing to witness because you can feel that connection and
Yes.
it draws you in a different way than uh, a sort of a less connected group, if you will. So I appreciate that. And I often call my husband my biggest enabler. And I think your husband, in your case, is probably the same as well, being very willing to help you
Yes.
execute a vision. I think that is such an important thing to have as a musician, someone that is
Yes.
supportive and being able to help you bring that vision forward. And speaking of vision, how do you two see this group going forward? Are you going to mix some more music together? Because you have recorded some albums together. I would love you to tell us about your past project and what are some of the things that perhaps you have in your horizon.
Yeah. So our first album, it's called The Nearness of You. We were actually planning our wedding at the time, and trying to think about what kind of favor we'd want to give our guests. And you go on, Instagram, or you go on Pinterest or Etsy, and there's lots of little trinkets you could buy and get your names engraved on them. But we sat down and we thought, why don't we leave them music, our music? And so we decided to take on the project of making our first album and giving that as a gift to our wedding guests. So we mostly chose very romantic pieces, covers by artists like Elton John and the Beatles and Journey, and just really fun music, and some things like jazz standards from the Great American Songbook, and just music that we enjoyed playing at the time. And yeah, so we undertook the project of going into a recording studio and working with one of our associates, Jim Reynolds, who's a really great engineer. And just it took us probably a couple months in the studio, when we didn't have a ton of time each time. So we just go in for smaller sessions, and eventually we were able to kind of pull it all together. And yeah, that was our debut album, The Nearness of You. And then it was about 8 years in between that album and our second album, which was the Skyboat song. And that has a kind of an interesting origin story as well. So it was during COVID, and we were doing all of these music videos and doing the performance videos, but then we had this idea to do the Skyboat song as more of a music video, a traditionally pre-recorded and then synced on location type of video. And we decided to go all out and do 18th century costumes, and we went pretty far. We went to Kent Island in Maryland to record those like ocean scenes. So it was kind of like our biggest production yet, and I got a really great response on YouTube. I think it's almost up to 30,000 views now. and it caught the attention of a woman who organizes an Outlander festival in North Carolina. And she invited us to come and perform at the festival. And I said, we'd love to, but we only have the one Scottish song. And Outlander, of course, is famously, it takes place mostly in Scotland. It has huge Scottish influences with it. And she said, well, do you think you can write more? And I said, oh my gosh. And now I was very pregnant at the time with our third child. And I said, these opportunities don't come up every day. And so we kind of all sat down and said, yes, I'll take the time and write 10 arrangements for this festival that we're going to be performing at. And it was so much fun to do that. And I really took my time with these arrangements and poured my heart into them. And we just thought that they were so great that they really deserved to be recorded. So while we had an infant, we set out to record this album over a couple of weeks. We only had about 2 months, and taking care of this little one and 2 other children as well at the time, and my amazing parents who came through yet again to help us with the kids while we were recording. And we were able to just barely the skin of our teeth get the album done before the festival. We even did the old school ripping CDs onto like physical CDs. We didn't have time to order them through, CD Baby or anything like that. So we just did it that way. And then later on, we ordered our nicer, copies from, what was the company?
Atomic Disc. Yeah,
Atomic Disc,
if
yeah.
you have one of the first 50 copies,
50 cuts.
we burned those all by hand.
We did. And we're like, please let the burning have worked. I know you can test that, but we didn't even have time to like put them all on a CD player to make sure that they worked. But hopefully they did, and there aren't any duds out there. So those are kind of the past projects. And then, as I was saying earlier, we're really hoping to put out an album full of originals in the next 6 months to a year somewhere. And it's tough with the kids to find the time, but we're really trying to prioritize that project now.
And what kind of music are you going to create? I know you said it's going to be original songs. Is it going to be things that is going to draw from sort of your family life? What kind of inspirations or themes are we going to see in there?
Yeah, so it will contain the first song that I wrote called I'll Lift You Up, which is about our kids and the promises that we make to them to teach them how to fly. So we're not flying for them, but we're giving them the tools that they need to do it themselves. And so that was the first song I ever wrote. We actually have that one recorded and it's up on our YouTube channel. And our youngest son actually makes a debut in the video as I'm lifting him into the air. So that's really fun to check out. And we also have an original called Come Away that's also on YouTube. And then the others are, they're just things that kind of came to me. A lot of them are autobiographical, sort of a lot of them like how Alex and I met and, our relationship kind of based on that, but also just based on universal themes about love and life and children and that kind of thing.
I feel like your music is like a little bit of a snapshot of your life's journey, and our audience can follow your life's journey by listening to your music, which I think is really neat. Where can we find your music?
So the best place to go is our website, Meghan-Alex.com. Meghan has an H, Meghan. And from there, you'll see where we're going to be performing concerts, any new music videos that come out, and we'll for sure have information about our newest album. We'll have more information about that as it's coming up. And you could also visit our YouTube channel. It's another great place to go to see. I think we have like 20 or 25 videos now. Some that are the full-blown music videos, some that are the performance videos, kind of looking sort of like this that we had recorded in our home. They kind of run the gamut of genres as well. So there's something hopefully there for everybody. And we are on Facebook as well.
And what about streaming service?
Yes, we do stream as well on Spotify and Apple Music and YouTube Music and all of that as well.
That's wonderful. I'm going to put all those links in the video description where if our audience would like to connect with you, they will be able to find you in all the social media platform. Now, before we go, Alex,
Wonderful.
I'm going to have to ask you, from each album, which song was the most memorable for you to create? From the nearness of you and then the sky bold.
Most memorable. I think, well, I'll start with the last one. We just last summer we filmed a music video for the Dance of the Druids, and we got to go to this great megalith park up in Pennsylvania near Stroudsburg, and that was a lot of fun. Meghan insisted that we buy a drone for it so we could have flying shots. So I had to learn how to pilot a drone. That was a ton of fun, and the song's really fun too.
Yeah.
From our first album,
Gosh, so long ago now.
there's a bunch of them.
Dance. That's a fun cello part.
The title track is really good too. I love that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of good choices.
We're gonna have to
It's hard to
listen
remember
all.
like the actual recording process because it was probably like 11 years ago now.
Right.
Something like that. Yeah, it's a little fuzzy.
I did want to mention too that the recording technology has come so far
Absolutely.
from when we recorded the Nearness of You to now. So Nearness of You was recorded completely in studio with our engineer, and then Skyboat Song we did in our home. And just the quality of the microphones that you can get, the software that you can get, it's really feasible to do it in your home, which makes it great because you're not like wasting somebody else's time if you have to do that take one more time. It's really like you feel comfortable to be able to just say, nope, I didn't quite get it. I want to do it one more time, even though I'm really tired. And you have that ability to do that in your own home, where it's a lot harder to do that in somebody else's studio, and especially when you know it's on your own dime there. Every hour that goes by, you feel that pressure, like, oh my gosh, I better get it right, and it's just a lot more freeing to be able to do it in your own home.
Yeah, and we record the instruments, the cello and the harp, right over here in our entryway, and the vocals will record anywhere.
Yeah, sometimes we
Depending on
do
the
it in our
basement.
basement, yeah, because it's a
Usually.
lot quieter, and yeah.
It's harder to hear the leaf blowers in the long run.
We're hoping to eventually have enough money to put a studio downstairs and have a soundproofed, quiet space that we can really not have to worry about, leaf blowers and airplanes and all of that kind of thing. So hopefully in the next couple of years.
I really enjoyed the get it done, sort of get your hands in there kind of attitude from the two of you when it comes to creating your music and your videos. Really recommend our audience to check out your YouTube channel. There are some really beautiful videos in there. Again, links is going to be in the video description. It has been a pleasure talking to the two of you and getting to know your work. I would love to hear from you when your next album is ready and share that with us in terms of some of the fun stories. Perhaps you'll buy more equipment to make your new video. I don't know. We'll have to see. But yes, thank you so much for taking the time, and I hope to talk to you two again soon.
Thank you so much, Victoria. It was a real pleasure.
Thank you very much.